You guys have been asking for it, so here's Celtic Link's top 10 LRs in Dokkan Battle. How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan Battle video. In today's video, we are finally putting this to rest. You guys have been asking me for quite some time to put out a tier list of the top LRs in Dokkan Battle. Not just LRs, but we're going to start with that. After all, in the community post we pulled earlier today, many of you guys had mentioned that you are interested in seeing my list of top 10 LRs first. So we're going to start with that. We are also doing this because here on the channel we will be participating in this year's 2023 Dokkan Awards. This is a great idea put out by a good friend of the channel, Greg Daw. I'll link the post in the description down below so you guys can get the full details. But basically we will be creating awards for various categories for units in Dokkan Battle released this year. Things like the most valuable unit, the LR of the year, the TUR of the year, the biggest letdown of the year. So I felt like after conversating with you guys in Twitter, in chat, on stream, in the comments, it was high time to give you guys an idea of where I stand on some of these units. So we'll be starting with the top 10 LRs. This will include all LRs except for Easy A's. I know it's going to make this a little wonky, right? Because Easy A will be its own category for the Dokkan Awards, so they won't be included in this. So things like the Blue Fusions, things like Rosé or the LR Androids won't be considered for this tier list. So just a heads up on that, right? So if you think that, one of those units should be higher, you're probably right, but they are just not part of this list. Now, I want to lead with this is my list. This is my opinion based on my experience with these units and my assessment of them. Feel free to disagree with any of that. If you do, let me know in the comments down below and let me know your list. Would love to hear it. Would love to converse with you about that in the comments, right? I want to know, what is your list and why do you think the units deserve to be where they're at? So first and foremost, we need to set our criteria. So just so you guys know, the criteria I am using to analyze these units is the following. Number one, viability. Is the unit viable in all current content? This is all the way up to Dismal Future Red Zone, Sin and Omega Shenron, the Divine Will stages. All of that is considered. The only thing I am not considering is Fusion Zamas's AoE in the Red Zone stage. And that is simply because, right, a turn 1 AoE basically means all unit have to be a slot 1. And that's just not how every unit is built. And otherwise this would be a very short 4-unit list, right? If we consider that. So we are not considering that. We will consider phase 2, right, for this, just not that one specific attack will not be used against the unit. It's nice to know that a unit can tank it, and that should be noted, but it won't be used against any unit. We'll also be looking at versatility. Does the unit have multiple setups? Can they be used in other places? Or do they have one setup and one setup only, and pretty much you run that, right? Finally, we'll be looking at consistency. Does the unit do what it does well, and does it do it consistently? So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on into our list. So first and foremost, with this list, we have our number 10. I had a hard time placing number 10, but I do think the 2 units I have at number 10 are pretty comfortably there. I don't think they're quite out of number 10 yet, because I do think they're still consistent in what they do. They provide defense. They are viable in all current content. I know people try to say that Vegeta and Trunks and Birdcoo have fell off, but they both have options. Vegeta and Trunks can survive Fusion Zamas stage, and so can Birdcoo, right? Provided their guard is up. Vegeta and Trunks, after turn 2, they're solid, right? They can tank the Fizz stage. I've had them tank a Fizz Super quite well. So just let that be noted. They are viable in the current content. They are consistent. Vegeta and Trunks, Birdcoo, They do what they do, and they do it consistently. Birdcoo a little less so, right? Because if you proc that, if you fall below the HP a little earlier than you want to, you can run into some problems, but that's not to say that that isn't a problem, because more often than not, if he's fallen below, if you're running Birdcoo, you're playing to his revive anyways, right? And then after that, he's guarding anyway, so there is that. In terms of versatility, also very versatile. Vegeta and Trunks a little less so on this end, but they've gotten better with different setups that have come in throughout the year, right? The additional Future Saga buffs that they received definitely allowed them to be run. Future Trunks is a great partner for them, both them and the Easy A. So, you know, versatility is up there. They no longer have to be run as the double, which was the problem, right? Running two of them, having them both in the first slot. While it did provide slot on coverage, it did limit your ability to build your team. Now only having to run one of them, definitely a little bit better. Birdcoo, again, as I said, he is versatile. If there's a team that can run a Goku, he's a Goku you can put on there. So that is it for number 10. Pretty comfortable with that placement. For number 9, we actually have two Wicked Bloodline units. We have Golden Frieza and LR Cooler. I think these guys are pretty comfortably at number 9. Golden Frieza is viable in all current content. In fact, the fact that both of these, all of the new stages are short, it actually plays in his favor because it allows him to keep the bulk of his damage reduction up. He is consistent in what he does, right, which is defend. However, like many villains and movie bosses characters, he's not as versatile. He's more versatile than Cooler, but he's not, you know, he is limited. He has a few places where he can just be kind of chucked into any place and just run slot 1 or even just as a slot 3 tank, but that's about all he's doing, which is why I can't place him higher. Cooler, I had a tough time placing him. I would put him 9. I might even move him down to 10, to be completely honest, right? He's fallen off a lot, and that is just simply because his consistency, right? That is the big drawdown for him. His highs are high. He is viable for the most part in the current meta if he has the turn of build. Once he gets past that first turn and he can get his supers, he is viable. When he doesn't get his supers, he's not. And I think that's the problem for him, is the consistency piece there, right? If he had a little more consistency and could, you know, keep the supers up and get to that active skill turn a little easier, I would honestly place him a little bit higher. But the fact that he can't means that I'm not placing him any higher than this. But I do think he hasn't fallen far off enough to not be on this list, right? If this had to be a single unit tier list, that would be different. But since, you know, I'm allowing multiple units in multiple slots, I think this is pretty consistently where I would put him, probably down at number 10, but not quite off the list. Number 8, I have Kai Goku. This is a unit I didn't pull this year. However, I do think he belongs somewhere in here. I don't think he's quite top 5 material, but he's within the top 10. He is consistent, right? He does what he does it well. He struggles a little bit in the newer stages, but he is still viable there. And he is versatile. Any unit, any team that you can run Goku in, you can run him. The only problem he has is he suffers from the base Goku same name syndrome, right? Otherwise, he's solid. He has a survive KO mechanic. He has really good defenses, and you know, he can put out a bit of damage, not a lot, but a bit. So I would definitely put that there. Above him at number 7, we actually have a unit that I think might surprise a few of you, and that is LR Ultimate Gohan, a character who has gotten nothing but better as this year has gone on. He started off in a bad place, but he is definitely a lot better now. He is viable in all current content when run on the correct team, right? And used within those turns that he is viable in. Obviously, he's not going to be viable if you're running him till turn 7 or 8 there, right? He's not meant to do that. Play him on the team he's meant to be played on with the units to support him that he needs, and he will work for you, and he will work for you well. He is kind of versatile in that there are a few different superhero options for him, but I can't place him higher because his versatility is a bit limited to the superhero team, but I do think he is better in terms of offense than all of these guys, which I think is what skyrockets him up for me. His offense, his high is far higher than the highs of any of these guys, even Cooler, and that for me is just because Cooler is so inconsistent. Now Gohan can be inconsistent, but he's had so much more help this year to allow his consistency to remain there, right? He struggled a bit in the early days with link partners and keeping his ki up, but now he doesn't have that problem. There's so many good partners for him now. There's so many ways to change orbs to ensure that he gets the proper ki he needs. So it's pretty easy nowadays to get his 21 to 24 ki, even if it can be a bit inconsistent. Now, obviously, the extra supers in his end, he is inconsistent there, but it's not detrimental to him when on the superhero team, right? Cooler's extra supers, not getting them is detrimental because then he doesn't get his defense. But because of Gohan's entrance passive, he doesn't have that problem. So I would definitely give it over that. Plus, he has the counter nullification, right? So there is that factor to consider for him. So that is why I have him at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we had a tough time with this one, and I really didn't want to put this unit here, but I can't really justify him above some of the other units, and that is Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Honestly, I wanted him to be higher. But you'll see as we move into the higher level units why he's here, and that's simply because of what he's providing for his teams, to be completely honest. He is viable for all of the current content. Can be a little scary that first turn, that first attack. If it's super attack, he's probably gonna die, but after that, he's solid. He gets his 5 hits, he goes into an invulnerable state, he comes out of that invulnerable state the next turn, you heal, and then he has one of the highest peaks in the game, right? He is dishing out some massive damage, especially if he gets an extra super. So viable, yes. Consistent, kind of, right? His consistency is based on the enemy, which can be tough. Most of the new stages, you'll get your 5 hits quite easy, quite early. But in other stages, you start to, like Goku Black stage is a great example of this for him. Goku Black doesn't attack enough in the first phase to reliably get Goku's transformation by turn 2 or turn 3. So there's you have to consider that. In terms of versatility, though, that's another detriment to him. Like the Gohan, very limited to very specific setups. I mean, he works well on Power Wishes. Giant 8 power with the heroes units has got a little better. However, he still struggles in versatility. He wants to be next to other Super Saiyan 4 units and other Goku units specifically, right? So that is where he kind of struggles on that end, right? One of his best partners, the LR Super Saiyan 4s, who, while great, have certainly fallen off a bit, right? I mean, they honestly are like at the LR Gods and LR Super Saiyan 4s are probably at number 11, right? They're just off the list, and that's because they just aren't providing as much. They're nice options, they're nice filler options, but it's really sad to see that that's where they are. But he's comfortably at number 6 for those reasons. Number 5 is actually an interesting choice, and that is the Z Duo. A lot of people love to hate this unit because they're scared of that turn 1, but if you play these guys to their strength, and that is their standby, you can kind of see why I put them here, right? Yes, turn 1, they're going to struggle with that first hit, especially if you put them slot 1. Put them slot 2, allow them to stack some defense. By the time they come back around turn 3, if you've got either the attacks you need or the or you've fallen below the HP threshold, you will get their standby. And really, that's what you should be playing with to these guys. If you're using these guys, you are playing to making their standby Spirit Bomb as powerful as possible. There is nothing more fun than to stall out those 5 turns, get Bulma's active skill, use Piccolo's giant form to reset the orbs, right? And just make that thing hit as hard as possible. It is a viable strategy. It works. You will clear every event in the game using their Spirit Bomb, right? It is just such a useful tool, and consider that while they're in that standby for 5 turns, you've got a slot 1 unit. You have a unit that will tank any and every hit in that slot 1 for you, provided you get the orb. So there is that to consider. Also consider they are stacking defense consistently. Past that first turn, they've got over 500k defense, right? So they're solid after turn 1, even if they don't get the standby, right? It's just literally that first turn that hurts them a little bit. Moving on, number 4, we have the LR Fusion Zamasu. I honestly wanted to put him higher. He is viable. He is consistent. He is unfortunately not versatile. However, his highs are much higher than a lot of other units, and the thing that sets him above the rest, and why I have him at 4 over other units who are not as versatile, is his domain, right? His domain lowering superclass and raising extreme class, which makes him and those around him all that much more powerful. The heal factor, right? The orb changing and the invulnerable state it puts him in once you get to that domain turn, put him up here. It is just so useful, so helpful, having basically a slot that is untouchable. And him just being one of the only villain units that is worthy of a high placement on this list. Honestly, I could even move him up to number 3, but you'll kind of see why in a minute why I didn't. But he could definitely move up 1 or 2 notches. I could see the argument for it, but I have him here because of all that he brings to the table. Now, above him, I have another one of our brand new Future Saga units, and that is the AGL Vegito Blue. These guys are viable in all current content, right? They have the dodge, they have the guard, they have attack stacking, they have an active skill transformation, turn 5, obviously with Future Saga allies, and an active skill post-transformation below 50% HP, which makes him invulnerable, right? A guaranteed dodge turn. You have him next to the likes of like Tech Vegito Blue, and you were talking about a turn where nothing survives, right? They are good. Play to their transformation and they will work in your favor. So viable, yes. Versatile, yes. They actually have a lot of different setups that work well for them. As long as you can provide that one Future Saga ally for them for the transformation, they're good, right? So you don't even have to worry about that. They do get a little scary if you don't get that transformation turn 5, but otherwise you have almost no issues with them. And they, and that's where the consistency comes in, right? Versatile, viable, a tad bit inconsistent, but the highs more than pay off for that small bit of inconsistency. From there, our number 2 unit. Honestly, for this channel being what it is, I feel like this unit should be number 1, but of course, everyone knows who number 1 is, so we're just gonna go ahead and put it out there. Sort of Hope Trunks, I put at number 2. Look, guys, you knew this was coming. This is Celtic Link's channel. We do like Trunks, but there is a justifiable reason for him being here, more so than any other unit, right? You have a unit that has a really, really high damage output from the get-go. He is one of the most necessary units to help people with the Fusion Zamasu Red Zone stage. AoE or not, those stages being int type help him so much to start. Slot 2, he's getting multiple super attacks and putting out high damage numbers. He's getting crits. He's getting He's raising defense on that first 18 key, which means by turn 2, he's solid defensively. Hit that turn 5, hit that turn 6, whatever the case may be, whenever he shows up. And now you have a standby where you can stick him in slot 1, get multiple supers, and be practically invulnerable, right? And like unleash a very, very devastating flurry of attacks until the next turn when you launch the standby finisher, in which case you deal a massive, massive hit. Not as strong as the Spirit Bomb, but after all of the attacks that he's doing while in that phase, right, compared to some of the other standbys, you have a pretty you have for a very, very powerful unit. And you know, his defense is nothing to laugh at, right? He does share a bit of the problem that Cooler has in the inconsistency in the multiple supers, but his being a high chance definitely is more in his favor than Cooler's, who is a 30% chance, right? So, and on top of that, him already having high defenses comparatively allow me to put him safely up here. He is providing so much for the teams that he's on. A huge buff to Superhero and Ultimate Gohan, and a basically must run on the Future Saga team in these new Red Zone stages. So that's why he's here. Now, unfortunately, I think everybody's number ones are going to be pretty consistent, so I'm just going to throw them all up here. Number 1, I think there's basically no argument against any unit up here on this list. You could maybe move 1 or 2 units down. Like, I could see an argument for moving Gohan down, but realistically, I think these guys consistently eat up the 4 slots in number 1 because of their thing is utility. And it's kind of crazy because none of these guys, they can deal high numbers, don't get me wrong. Gohan's active skill turn under the domain is high. It's crazy how good it is. The Spirit Bomb on the GT Duo can deal a lot of damage. Piccolo can deal a bit of damage, right? But that's not what they're here for. They are here for the 3 reasons, right? They are viable. Okay, they can tackle every single Red Zone stage. These guys struggle a little bit with AoE, but like I said, I don't count that against them, right? Especially because you're likely using them and playing to their revive, right? So even that doesn't even matter. Consistency. Every single one of these do what they do, and they do it well. GT Duo revives, they do it well. Piccolo, you're playing to his giant form. He does it well, right? Canceling supers, he does it well. Bulma, protect slot 1, provide 2-turn support, does it well. Gohan, invulnerable, right, in slot 2 or 3, invulnerable in slot 1 once you get his domain up, right? The domain, buffing all of your allies while debuffing the enemy. Huge, right? He's a very, very powerful unit. He's practically untouchable, especially if you're running him in slot 2, where he gets that extra damage reduction from each of his supers. Things can be a little scary for him turn 1, but otherwise he is solid wherever he's at. So they are viable, they are consistent, and they're all versatile. Piccolo and Bulma can be run practically anywhere, right? Bulma especially. Bulma is so good she works off lead. Like, consider that. And that's kind of why she's up here. The GT Duo. If there's a team that can be run on and it needs a revive, you're running them. 23rd World Tournament Goku's team comes to mind, right? They are the perfect revive character for him because once they revive and you get Goku up, they're still viable, right? They are still launching multiple supers, getting damage reduction on their supers. They're a great third slot floater once you get that revive up for World Tournament Goku. And then obviously, like we already talked about, what Gohan is providing. So they are all doing so many things. It's hard to make an argument not for any one of them. I might move the GT Duo down or Gohan down, right? Like again, they're so good. They're all so great at what they do. They fit all 3 categories. I mean, there's an argument for any one of them to be up here, so I would just put all 4 of them, to be completely honest. So, guys, that is it for our video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let me know, what does your tier list look like? Who are your top units, LR units in Dokkan currently? We could get a new LR in the next couple of days that might invalidate this entire list, but I really don't think it will. I think they might just slot very kindly next to one of the characters on this list. I don't think they're going to be pushing to many people that far off. And again, the main reason we're doing this is to prepare ourselves for the 2023 Dokkan Awards. All right, to see who we are going to prep, give you guys an idea of what we're going to be looking at for these awards. So that is it for our tier list. If you like the video, guys, like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if nothing else, guys, thanks for watching, and aloha.